In the heart of a Washington, D.C. conference, my father, a tech CEO, scorned my 7 languages as workless in front of industry giants. My sister smirked, echoing his disdain. Cybersecurity doesn't need word nerds, he said. But they didn't know this word nerd would unravel their empire. My name is Emily Harper, 33 years old, a linguistic analyst in cybersecurity. That day, I sat in the 10th row, my tailored blazer feeling more like armor than pride. The conference hall was grand, buzzing with tech elites in sharp suits, their voices a hum of power and ambition. My father, Richard Bennett, CEO of CyberPeak Solutions, stood tall, a titan of industry. Beside him, my sister, Laura Bennett, his deputy, glowed with inherited confidence. They were the stars, and I was just a shadow in their orbit. Then, Director Margaret Ellis, head of NSA Cybersecurity Division, took the stage. Her voice cut through the room, naming one person for saving critical negotiations with linguistic skill, me. The hall stood, applauding. My father's face drained of color. Have you ever been underestimated only to prove them wrong? Share your story below and subscribe for more tales of triumph. My father's face, pale as a ghost, lingered in my mind like a snapshot I couldn't erase. That moment at the Washington, D.C. conference, when Director Margaret Ellis called my name and the room stood to applaud, was the first time I saw him falter. Richard Bennett, the untouchable CEO of CyberPeak Solutions, a man who built a tech empire on ruthless precision, looked like he'd been struck. My sister, Laura Bennett, stood beside him, her smug smile frozen, her eyes darting as if searching for an escape. They thought I was nothing, a word nerd, a disappointment who'd never match their ambition. But they didn't know I was already rewriting their story. I'm Emily Harper, a 33-year-old linguistic analyst in cybersecurity, and that day, I was a ghost in their world, invisible until I wasn't. The conference hall's grandeur faded as I sat in my seat, my hands clenched in my lap, my blazer pulling tight across my shoulders. The air was thick with the buzz of tech moguls, their voices sharp with deal-making and flattery. I could still hear my father's words echoing from the stage. Cybersecurity doesn't need word nerds. Each syllable was a blade, slicing through years of silent battles. I'd spent my life chasing his approval, only to be dismissed as a relic, a scholar in a world of code and steel. But Director Ellis's voice, clear and commanding, had shifted the room's gravity. She'd called me out for my work. My 7 languages had decoded a critical negotiation, saving a multi-million-dollar defense contract from collapse. The applause was deafening, a wave of validation I'd never felt before. My father's shock was my first victory, but it wasn't enough. Not yet. I closed my eyes and the polished conference room dissolved. Suddenly, I was 16 again, standing in the living room of our Seattle home, a sleek, modern house with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Puget Sound. It was Thanksgiving, the air heavy with the scent of roasted turkey and my mother's cinnamon apple pie cooling on the counter. Our home was a showcase of my father's success, all glass and chrome, but it felt cold, like a museum for his achievements. My mother, a linguist who'd filled my childhood with stories of words as keys to the world, had passed away 2 years earlier. Her absence left a void no one dared acknowledge. That day, I clutched a cream-colored envelope, my acceptance letter to MIT's linguistics program with a full scholarship. It was my ticket out, my dream inked in elegant black font. I'd waited all day for the right moment to share it, my heart pounding with hope that this time, maybe, my father would see me. Dinner was a performance. My father sat at the head of the table, a king in his domain, his tailored suit as sharp as his words. Laura, home from her MBA program at Stanford, was his crown princess, her every move polished to reflect his glory. Relatives filled the table, aunts and uncles nodding at his every story, their laughter loud and rehearsed. The conversation orbited him and Laura, her internships, her presentations, her inevitable rise in CyberPeak solutions. I sat quietly, pushing mashed potatoes around my plate, my light dimming with every word. I was invisible, a guest at my own family's table. Finally, as the pumpkin pie was served, I saw my chance. My hands shook as I slid the envelope across the table. "Dad," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "I got into MIT, full scholarship, linguistics." He picked up the envelope, his eyes glancing at the MIT logo with the same interest he'd give a spam email. He set it down, not on the table's polished wood, but next to a half-eaten dinner roll, a place for scraps. He didn't open it. His gaze flicked to Laura, then back to me, flat and unimpressed. "Linguistics," he said, the word dripping with disdain, like it was a synonym for failure. "More books, Emily. Look at your sister." He gestured to Laura, who leaned back in her chair, her lips curling into a practiced smile. "She's learning to run a company. That's the future. That's power. What are you going to do with languages? Translate manuals while Laura builds an empire?" The table went silent. My aunts and uncles stared at their plates, their forks frozen. My cheeks burned, a heat so intense it stung my eyes. Laura shrugged, her eyes glinting with a cruel satisfaction she didn't bother to hide. It was her victory, another moment where she shone and I faded. My father stood, raising his glass. "To Laura Bennett," he announced, his voice booming with pride, "the future of CyberPeak solutions." Glasses clinked. A chorus of cheers filled the room, and my envelope lay forgotten, a smudge of cranberry sauce staining its corner like blood. That night, I sat in my room, clutching my mother's old Spanish dictionary, its pages worn from her gentle hands. She taught me that words were bridges, that understanding could change the world. But in that house, my bridge was a burden. My tears soaked the pages as a question took root. Why was I fighting for a man who'd never see me? That question became my fuel. Why chase a rigged game? You don't. You walk away and build your own. After MIT, I didn't go home. I took a job at a cybersecurity firm in Washington, D.C., specializing in linguistic analysis for threat detection. My first role was at Nexus Security, a firm buried in the city's tech hub, where the air smelled of coffee and ambition. The office was a maze of glass walls and blinking servers, but to my colleagues, I was an oddity. The only woman in my team, the only one with a linguistics degree instead of computer science. They called me Lexicon, a nickname laced with mockery. In meetings, I'd suggest how cultural nuances or regional dialects could reveal a hacker's origin, only to be met with eye rolls or interruptions. My boss, a grizzled ex-programmer named Carl, once snapped, "We need coders who can break firewalls, not poets who analyze slang." The isolation was heavy, a constant weight in the fluorescent-lit office, but I didn't break. The girl who cried over a stained envelope was gone. I worked harder, stayed later, poring over intercepted communications, emails, chats, voice recordings. I studied not just words, but pauses, inflections, the subtle tells of deception. I spent my own money on books about behavioral psychology and digital forensics, building a system that blended linguistics with threat analysis. It was my weapon, sharpened in silence. At night, alone in my small apartment, the hum of DC traffic outside, I found solace in Maya Angelou's words. "Still I rise" became my mantra, whispered in the dark. "You may cut me with your eyes, you may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I'll rise." I didn't need their validation. I just needed to prove them wrong. My chance came with a stalled case. A series of cyber attacks had hit Nexus's clients, leaking sensitive data, and the investigation was dead in the water. The suspect, a hacker known only by a cryptic alias, communicated in a rare dialect of Farsi mixed with tech jargon. My team had hit a wall, their algorithms useless against the linguistic maze. They turned to me as a last resort. I sat in a sterile server room, the air cold with the hum of machines, and analyzed the hacker's messages. I didn't focus on the code. I listened to the rhythm, the word choices, the cultural references. I spoke to the suspect in his own dialect, weaving in references to Persian poetry, building a bridge of understanding. 2 hours later, he'd revealed his motives, a disgruntled contractor seeking revenge. I mapped out his network, his methods, his next target. When I walked out with a full report, the office went quiet. The usual clatter of keyboards stopped. Carl looked up from his desk, his usual smirk gone, replaced by a nod of grudging respect. It wasn't a promotion or a raise, but it was my first win, a crack in the wall of doubt. That victory opened a door. My methods, once mocked, caught the attention of Nexus's leadership. I was invited to brief the firm's top analysts, a room of sharp-eyed tech experts who lived in a world of algorithms and data streams. I felt out of place, a linguist among coders, but I stood tall and walked them through my process: cultural mapping, linguistic cues, psychological profiling. When I finished, the room nodded politely, but their eyes showed they didn't fully grasp it. They saw the result, not the art. As the room cleared, one person stayed behind: Nathan Cole, a freelance hacker known as Nate, with a calm presence that stood out in the high-strung office. He didn't check his phone or pack his bag. He just waited until we were alone. "Emily," he said, his voice steady, "I'm Nate. Your method, the way you caught that Farsi shift in syntax, it's not in any textbook. It's craft." I froze. For years, my work had been judged by its output: data, reports, results. But Nate saw the how, the delicate dance of intuition and skill. For the first time, I felt seen. We ended up at a diner near the office, a small place with chipped mugs and the faint smell of fried eggs. Over coffee, we talked for hours. I told him about my mother's books, how she taught me that every language was a window to a new world. He spoke of code like poetry, each line deliberate, each pattern a story. He could read a hacker's intent in their digital footprints just as I read it in their words. "We're not so different, Emily," he said, his eyes bright. "You decode people. I decode machines. We're both chasing truth." It was a connection I'd never felt with Laura, a sister who'd only ever seen me as a rival. Nate became my anchor, the first person who made me feel like my work wasn't just useful, it was art. That diner conversation with Nate marked a turning point. For the first time, I wasn't just a linguist fighting to be heard. I was a partner, respected for my craft. Nate's words lingered, a quiet validation that carried me through the grind of Nexus Security's glass-walled offices. But the glow of that victory faded fast. My father and sister, Richard and Laura Bennett, were about to remind me how far they'd go to keep me in their shadow. Back at Nexus, my reputation grew. My Farsi case had made waves, and I was assigned to bigger projects, decoding intercepted communications for government contracts, analyzing threats in languages my colleagues couldn't touch. I was no longer lexicon to the team. I was Emily, the one who cracked cases others couldn't. But the higher I climbed, the more I felt the weight of my family's disdain. My father never called to congratulate me. Laura never acknowledged my work. Their silence was louder than any insult, a reminder that to them, I was still the girl with the stained MIT letter, unworthy of their empire. One chilly December evening, as I worked late in my DC apartment, my phone buzzed. The caller ID showed a Seattle number, Richard Bennett. My heart skipped, a foolish spark of hope flickering despite years of disappointment. Maybe he'd heard about my work. Maybe he was finally proud. I answered, my voice steady. "Hello?" "Emily." My father's voice boomed, as commanding as ever, like he was addressing a boardroom. "Laura and I need to talk. It's important." Then Laura's voice cut in, smooth and syrupy, the kind of warmth that felt like a trap. "Hey, little sister, heard you're making a name for yourself out there." Her words dripped with condescension, but I let the hope burn for a moment, clinging to the idea that they'd finally seen me. Then my father spoke again, his tone sharp, all business. "You're working with a contractor, Apex Dynamics, on a cybersecurity audit, correct?" "Yes," I said cautiously. Apex Dynamics supplied encryption software for Nexus's government clients. I'm reviewing their performance data." "Good," he said, his voice flat. "Apex is a key partner for CyberPeak Solutions. There's an audit report coming up, some noise about their software having vulnerabilities. I need you to smooth it over, downplay the flaws, highlight their reliability. It's a favor for the family." My stomach twisted. He wasn't asking me to do my job. He was asking me to lie, to falsify a report that could compromise national security. Apex's software had critical bugs. I'd seen the data myself, gaps that could let hackers slip through. Covering it up wasn't just unethical, it was a betrayal of everything I'd sworn to protect. "Dad," I said, my voice shaking but clear, "that's illegal. It violates federal regulations, my contract, my duty." The warmth vanished from his tone, replaced by a cold edge I knew too well. "Don't lecture me, Emily. I've built CyberPeak for 30 years. You're just a junior analyst. This is how the world works. You help us, we help you. Don't forget who put you in that job." It was a threat wrapped in the guise of family loyalty. Laura chimed in, her voice laced with pity. "Come on, Emily, don't be naive. This is your chance to be a team player, to finally matter to this family." Their words hit like a punch. To them, I wasn't a professional with a skill set they couldn't match. I was a pawn, a tool to protect their deals, their empire. All my work, sleepless nights, cracked cases, the respect I'd earned meant nothing. I was still the disappointing daughter, offered a chance to be useful. Anger surged, not the helpless rage of my teenage years, but a sharp, focused fury. I'd spent years building my own worth, and they thought they could buy it with a favor. I let the silence stretch, heavy and deliberate. Then I spoke, my voice low and steady. "I won't do it." Before they could respond, I hung up. My hand trembled as I set the phone down, but inside, something settled. I'd drawn a line, slammed a door shut, and turned the key myself. The silence that followed was deafening, but it was mine. I knew there'd be consequences. I just didn't expect them to come so fast or so brutally. 3 days later, I was leading a critical presentation at a secure Nexus facility on the outskirts of D.C. The room was a fortress of glass and steel, filled with analysts and government officials. We were reviewing Apex Dynamics encryption software, my report detailing its vulnerabilities. The air was tense, the stakes sky high. A single flaw could jeopardize military communications. My laptop hummed, connected to Nexus's secure network. Suddenly, my screen flickered. A cascade of error messages flooded the display, files vanishing before my eyes. A voice crackled through my earpiece, not my team's, but a stranger's, speaking in flawless Mandarin with a chilling calm. "Little word nerd," it said, "does your father know you failed him?" Ice flooded my veins. The phrase wasn't just a taunt, it was personal, aimed at my deepest wound. Only a handful of people knew my father's disdain for my languages. This wasn't a random hack, it was a surgical strike. Before I could react, the network crashed. Alarms blared, red lights flashing across the room, data streams froze, and classified files began leaking onto the dark web. The room erupted in chaos, analysts shouting, phones ringing, officials scrambling. My career, my reputation, hung by a thread. A searing realization hit me. This was no coincidence. Someone had orchestrated this to silence me, to destroy me, and in my gut, I knew who. The attack was relentless, a perfectly executed digital ambush. My team fought to contain it, but the damage was catastrophic. By the time we regained control, sensitive data had been exposed, and my name was tied to the failure. My boss, Carl, didn't yell. He just looked at me, his face a mask of disappointment. You were in charge of this, Harper. This is on you. I wanted to scream that it wasn't my fault, that I'd been targeted, but the words stuck in my throat. I saw my father's cold eyes, Laura's smug grin, and I knew this was their answer to my refusal. Back at my apartment, the walls closed in. The city's hum felt mocking, a reminder of how close I'd come to losing everything. I sat at my desk, staring at my laptop, the weight of betrayal crushing me. They hadn't just tried to ruin my career, they'd tried to erase me. But I wasn't that girl anymore, crying over a stained envelope. I was a woman forged in fire, and I wasn't going down without a fight. I grabbed my phone and called Nate, using a secure line. "Nate, it's Emily," I said, my voice urgent but steady. "I need you. Off the books. It's dangerous." I told him everything, the call from my father and Laura, their demand to falsify the report, my refusal, and the attack that followed. I laid out the facts, cold and raw. There was a long silence, and for a moment, I feared I'd asked too much. Then Nate spoke, his voice like steel. "Emily, I don't care if it's a CEO or a senator. No one gets to do this to you. Send me everything. We're taking them down." His loyalty was a lifeline, the only light in my darkness. We began our fight in the shadows. I started with the Apex Dynamics reports, hundreds of pages of sterile corporate jargon, seamless integration, robust security, minimal discrepancies. Too perfect. I cross-referenced them with Nexus's internal logs, finding subtle inconsistencies, crashes labeled as user error, vulnerabilities buried under vague terms. Meanwhile, Nate dove into the attack's digital trail. He worked from a safe house in Baltimore, his laptops a fortress of encrypted drives. The official report called the breach a system glitch, but Nate saw through it. "It's a cover-up," he said over a secure call. "The logs were wiped, but you can't hide a hack like that. It's like trying to hide a footprint in wet cement." He analyzed the network's backup caches, digging through fragments of deleted data. Late one night, he found it, a ghost in the system. A backdoor access port, opened and closed hours before the attack, traced to a private server owned by CyberPeak Solutions. My heart pounded. It was proof, a crack in their perfect facade. We worked for 2 weeks, fueled by coffee and rage, barely sleeping. At 2 a.m., my phone buzzed. Nate's voice was electric. "Emily, I got it. I got the bastards." He sent me an encrypted file, a restored log from the CyberPeak server, capturing a call between Laura and Apex's lead engineer. I played it, my hands shaking. Laura's voice was cold, precise. My father's handled his end. "Now you make sure the breach buries her, permanently." The engineer hesitated, muttering about risks. "It's not a risk," Laura snapped. "It's a necessity. She's a liability." My breath caught, my world tilted, but there was more. Nate found a second file, a contract amendment granting Apex Dynamics A $10 million budget increase signed by Richard Bennett the day after the attack. It was a bribe, a reward for their silence. The evidence was undeniable, a digital noose around their necks. My weapon was loaded, but I needed the right battlefield. Filing a report through Nexus would bury the truth in red tape. My father's connections ran deep, his influence a suffocating web. I needed a stage, a moment where their power couldn't protect them. I knew exactly where to strike. The evidence glowed on my laptop screen, a recorded call, a signed contract, a digital trail of betrayal. My father, Richard Bennett, and my sister Laura thought they could bury me with a cyber attack, but I'd turned their weapon against them. I sat in my D.C. apartment, the city's hum a distant murmur, my hand steady as I compiled the files. Nate's voice echoed in my mind. We're taking them down. But this wasn't about revenge. It was about justice, about proving my worth in a world that had dismissed me. Filing a report through Nexus's channels would be a death sentence for the truth, smothered by my father's influence. I needed a stage, a moment where their empire would crumble before an audience they couldn't control. So I made my move. I encrypted the evidence, the audio of Laura's call, the contract signed by Richard, Nate's network logs, into a single file. I didn't send it to Nexus's oversight board. I sent it to Director Margaret Ellis, head of NSA's cybersecurity division, the woman who'd called my name at the conference. My message was one line: Director, the integrity of our industry is at stake. For 3 days, silence followed. Doubt crept in. Had I misjudged her? Had I overplayed my hand? Then an email arrived, formal and brief. Emily Harper, you are required to attend the National Cybersecurity Summit in Washington, D.C. No explanation, but I understood. Director Ellis wasn't just acknowledging my message, she was setting the stage. The summit was CyberPeak Solutions' crown jewel, an annual event where my father was to receive a Lifetime Achievement Award. It was his coronation, a celebration of his legacy, but I knew it would be his reckoning. I returned to the same conference center where he'd mocked me months before. The hall was a sea of suits and polished smiles, the air thick with ambition. I walked to my seat, my blazer crisp, my gaze level. The girl who'd once wanted to vanish was gone. In her place was a woman ready to rewrite history. From my seat, I saw them in the VIP section, Richard, regal as ever, shaking hands with tech moguls. Laura, radiant, soaking in his reflected glory. They were oblivious, secure in their power, never imagining I'd turn their world to ash. The ceremony began. Awards were handed out, speeches droned on. My father's name was called, his achievements listed to thunderous applause. He strode to the stage, his smile a mask of triumph. Then Director Ellis took the podium for the closing remarks. Her voice was calm, authoritative, cutting through the room like a blade. Before we conclude, she said, we must address a matter of integrity that threatens our industry. A murmur rippled through the crowd. She gestured to the massive screen behind her. A recent cyber attack compromised a critical Nexus security project, endangering national security and nearly destroying an analyst's career. The screen lit up with Nate's network diagram, showing an unauthorized access port traced to CyberPeak servers. This breach was no accident, Ellis continued, her voice like ice. It was a deliberate act, covered up to protect a lucrative contract. The screen shifted, displaying the contract amendment, Richard's signature stark at the bottom. A gasp swept the room. My father's face, projected on a nearby camera, turned a sickly white, his smile gone. But Ellis wasn't done. She nodded to the tech booth. And now, the reason for the cover-up. Laura's voice filled the hall, cold and clear. My father's handled his end. Now you make sure the breach buries her permanently. The recording stopped. The silence was crushing, a void that swallowed every whisper, every cough. 1,000 eyes turned from the screen to Richard and Laura, frozen in their seats like statues caught in a storm. I stood, as instructed, and walked to the stage. I stood beside Director Ellis, looking down at my family. Laura's face was a mask of panic, her hands gripping the chair as if to flee. 2 security officers appeared beside her, their presence quiet but final. Then I met my father's eyes. For the first time in my 33 years, I saw not disdain, not control, but raw fear, a king stripped of his crown. Director Ellis gave me a slow nod, a gesture of respect that said more than words. I returned it, a silent thank you for the justice she'd delivered. Then I turned and walked off the stage, past the shocked murmurs, past the ruins of the Bennett Empire. I didn't look back. The storm was over. The days that followed were a whirlwind of investigations. I gave my testimony to federal auditors, laying out the facts with calm precision. The evidence Nate and I had gathered was ironclad. CyberPeak's contracts were frozen, its reputation shattered. My father's name, once synonymous with innovation, was now whispered with disgrace. Laura faced charges for orchestrating the breach. I felt relief, like a chain around my heart had snapped, but also exhaustion. I'd won, but the battlefield was my life, and the cost was my family. I saw Laura one last time in a sterile hallway outside the auditor's office. She was escorted by security, her designer suit replaced by plain clothes, her wrists cuffed. When she saw me, her face twisted with rage. "Happy now, Emily?" she spat, her voice venomous. "You tore us apart, all because you couldn't stand being second best." Her words, once sharp enough to cut, were now hollow. I looked at her, the sister who'd never seen me as anything but a threat, and felt only pity. "No, Laura," I said, my voice even. "I didn't tear us apart. You and Dad did that. I just told the truth." I walked away, her shouts fading behind me. My father wasn't charged immediately. His influence bought him time, but his career was over. His legacy was dust. He requested a meeting and I agreed, not for him, but for closure. We met at a quiet DC coffee shop, its windows fogged with winter chill. He looked old, his shoulders stooped, his hands trembling as he stirred his coffee. He didn't apologize or admit fault. Instead, he slid a small USB drive across the table. "Emily," he said, his voice hoarse, "this has my original code from CyberPeak's first software. I want you to have it. We're still family." It was his last play, a desperate bid to buy my silence with a piece of his legacy. He still thought I wanted his world, his approval. He didn't understand I'd only ever wanted a father. I pushed the USB back. "I don't need it, Mr. Bennett," I said, the title a final wall between us. "Honor isn't in code or trophies. It's in our actions. Yours and Laura's nearly destroyed me." I stood, the chair scraping softly. "I hope you learn that someday, but I'm done waiting. I'm living my own life now. Good luck, sir." I walked out, the cold air sharp on my face, a wave of relief so strong it nearly buckled my knees. Grief followed, a pang for the family I'd lost, but I knew I'd found something greater, myself. The aftermath was quiet. CyberPeak collapsed under scrutiny, its contracts canceled, its name erased from industry halls. I left the high-stakes world of Nexus behind. On Director Ellis's recommendation, I took a teaching position at a cybersecurity institute in Boston. The city's cobblestone streets and autumn leaves felt like a fresh start, far from DC's sharp edges and Seattle's ghosts. I was tasked with creating a program, Linguistic Threat Analysis, blending my skills with cybersecurity training. My first day, I walked into my office and saw a small brass plaque on the door. It didn't have my name. It simply read, "The Word Room," a gift from Nate, who'd flown in to help me settle. I stood there, a smile spreading across my face, the first real one in years. My legacy wouldn't be a secret code or a corporate empire. It would be a classroom, a place to teach young analysts that words could be weapons, that empathy could outsmart algorithms. In my first class, I didn't start with syntax or code. I told a story, anonymized of course, about a breach that nearly succeeded because of a missed cultural cue. I taught them to listen to silences, to read the stories hidden in word choices. After class, a young analyst, bright and eager, stayed behind. "Harper," she said, her voice soft with awe. "No one's ever said empathy could be a strategy." Her words lit a spark in me. I wasn't just teaching. I was arming a new generation with tools to build bridges, not just walls. My healing began in Boston's quiet streets, nurtured by my mother's favorite verse, one she'd read to me as a child, "Do not fear, for I am with you." A year later, a package arrived at my office, no return address, but I recognized my aunt's elegant handwriting. Inside was a faded photo of me at 10, curled up with my mother's French dictionary, lost in a world of words. On the back, she'd written, "Your father asked me to send this. He said this is how he wants to remember you." It wasn't an apology, but it was a nod, a quiet admission that the girl with the books had won. I pinned the photo next to the Word Room plaque, my past and present side by side. Looking at that girl, I felt no pain, only pride. I'd healed, not by forgiving them, but by forgiving myself for ever thinking I wasn't enough. The dust settled in Boston's quiet streets, but the echoes of my war lingered. The fall of CyberPeak Solutions was a headline for weeks. Richard Bennett's empire, once a beacon of innovation, now a cautionary tale of greed. Laura's trial was swift, her career a memory. My father faded into obscurity, his name stripped from industry awards. I felt no joy in their ruin, only a quiet peace, like the calm after a storm. The chains of their expectations, their disdain, had rusted away. I was free. My new life at the Cybersecurity Institute was a world apart from DC's cutthroat offices. The campus, nestled among Boston's autumn oaks, felt like a sanctuary. My program, Linguistic Threat Analysis, was gaining traction, drawing analysts eager to learn how words could outsmart code. Every morning, I walked past the brass plaque on my office door, the Word Room, and felt a spark of pride. Nate's gift was more than a name. It was a promise that my work mattered. I wasn't just teaching. I was building a legacy, one that valued empathy as strength, understanding as power. In my classes, I saw myself in the young analysts, bright, underestimated, hungry to prove their worth. I shared stories of cases solved not by algorithms, but by listening to the human behind the data. One evening after a lecture, a student lingered. She was quiet, her eyes sharp with a familiar resolve. "Miss Harper," she said, "your story about the cultural misstep, it changed how I see my work. No one's ever taught us to listen like that." Her words were a mirror, reflecting the girl I'd been, clutching a dictionary, desperate to be seen. I smiled, my voice soft. "Keep listening. It's your sharpest tool." Nate visited often, our bond unshaken by distance. Over coffee in a cozy Boston diner, we'd talk about code and words, truth and trust. He was my family now, not by blood, but by choice. The kind that shows up when you're broken, stays when you're whole. My mother's verse echoed in my quiet moments, "Do not fear, for I am with you." It wasn't just faith, it was a truth I'd lived. I'd faced betrayal, fought a war, and emerged stronger. Not because I was fearless, but because I'd walked through fear and kept going. Months later, another package arrived. No return address. My aunt's handwriting was unmistakable. Inside was a small notebook, my mother's, filled with her notes on language, her elegant script a map of her mind. A note was tucked inside. Your father sent this. He said it's how he sees you now. It wasn't an apology, but it was a gesture, a crack in his armor. I held the notebook, its weight familiar, and pinned it beside the photo on my office corkboard. The girl with the dictionary and the woman in the word room stood together unbroken. I didn't need his approval anymore. I'd forgiven myself for ever thinking I did. My journey wasn't just mine. So many of us fight silent battles, unseen by those who should love us most. When did you realize you had to choose yourself? What was the first step you took to claim your worth? Share your story in the comments below. Your voice matters, and you're not alone. Subscribe to hear more stories of resilience, of rising above betrayal, of building your own path.